Hello, good evening and welcome to Weymouth Town Council Planning and Licensing. I'd like to wish any members of the public that are watching a good evening, and to the members of the public that are kind enough to join us. Hello, good evening and welcome to Weymouth Town Council Planning and Licensing. I'd like to wish any members. We'll start with item 1, which is apologies for absence. Charmaine, have we any apologies? Just Mr. Bergman, yeah. Okay. We'll go and ask if members would approve that apology. We have a proposer in Councillor Orell, seconder in Councillor Luke Wakeling. All those in favour? That's unanimous. We can now move on to item 2, declarations of interest. Does anybody have any declaration of interest on tonight's agenda? It's a negative, Fred. We'll now move on to item 3, the minutes of the last meeting. To approve the minutes of the last meeting held on the 1st of November 2022 as a true and accurate record.
Yes.
Do we have any comments on the minutes? Could I have a proposer and a seconder that we agree as a true and accurate record? Councillor Orell proposes. Councillor Young seconds. All those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? Yeah. So that's 5 for 1 no vote. We now come to item 4, public participation. I would just like to remind members of the public that Weymouth Town Council acts as a consultee only with regards to planning and licensing matters, and that Dorset Council is both the planning authority and licensing authority. Therefore, final decisions are made by them, and any representations by members of the public need to be made to Dorset Council. I'll just ask the members of the public, will you be wishing to speak on item 5, which is land at Newton's Road? Yeah. Yeah, you're all the same. Well, with the committee's approval, I'd like to move to item 12 first, which is traffic regulation orders, so that Councillor Ferrari can move on, as I know he's got another meeting. Double yellow lines, if that's in agreement with all the committee, we'll move straight to item 12. Double yellow lines extension east of 99 Bowleaze Coveway, Weymouth. I'll ask if you could. Over to you, Councillor Ferrari.
Thank you, Chair. This bit of Bowleaze Coveway has an odd current yellow line configuration. Bowleaze Coveway, I don't know, about 3/4 of a mile long, and it's got the same configuration all the way down it until the last 100 yards or so. What it's got is it's got yellow line on one side and parking, no restrictions, so parking's only on the other side of the road. And that comes all the way down from when it's Preston Road, past the Coveway itself. This section here that we're talking about is when you start going up the hill, the far side, if you've gone down into the Coveway and you're going up the far side. And the yellow line, you can see in the left-hand photo there, stops about halfway up the hill for no apparent reason. Now, I suspect that was the end of the road when they put the yellow line in, and I think they've redeveloped the houses further up the hill since then, and they haven't changed the yellow line configuration. The problem that causes is, particularly during the summer, people end up parking on both sides of the road in this bit here. So traffic can move fine up and down all the rest of the road, but this last bit here, last 100 yards or so, you get parking on both sides, and the road's not wide enough for cars parked on both sides. So there was an incident with an emergency vehicle last year who couldn't get through. If you look at the right-hand photo, the white fence you can see on the right-hand side is the back fence for the Riviera Hotel. So that's how you get into the Riviera if you're bringing a delivery in the back way. And the road gets blocked so that bigger vehicles can't get down it on both sides. So what the application is to do is just to continue the yellow line up one side of the road to the end, like it is all the rest of the road. The other side effect is that currently all of these drives get parked over because people squeeze in cars and half park over the drives to block them off. To deal with David's question before he asks it, there will be displacement. It's not a lot because it's not a long section of road and half of it is, or a third of it is driveways already. So that there's relatively few cars along it. And in the summer, they will get displaced back up towards Preston Road. So really, the application is just a tidying up of, I think, an inconsistency in the current yellow line configuration. Thank you.
David, would you like to?
Yeah, I would, surprisingly. Several things. I didn't declare an interest, but I am very interested in that. I park up here at least once a week. Right at the top of the lane, you go up towards Redcliffe, lovely walk. Lots of people park in this area for walking their dogs. And I can see that occasionally that provides a problem. But it is a big public open access area. And I think losing it with double yellow lines up the one side of the road would be the wrong thing to do. I point out that the houses at the top of the road are new houses, and they were bought when there would have been a traffic assessment, and people, when they bought it, would have known that there wasn't double yellow lines outside their house. If you look on the left-hand picture, you can see a white line. And in previous instances, like at Walker Crescent, when a resident asked for double yellow lines, we actually recommended having a white line across the access to the property. There was a lane and it was across the access to the property. And that's perfectly within the rights of any resident or residents group to raise such a request for a white line. And it does cost them £225 or so for it to be processed. But I'd say that that's far more likely to go through in fast order than double yellow lines. And it was on the basis of that advice last time that we had from the highways group that we recommended Walker Crescent have white lines in place and not double yellow lines. I don't know whether the Riviera have actually complained, but I read the details, and it's a resident who's requested this, I believe, Councillor Ferrari. So that back part is like an empty parking lot most of the time, and occasionally, I believe that white line, by the way, there, but I might be wrong, is there to protect the caravan entrance. And I think the double yellow lines this side were also in place because the caravans are manoeuvred into the waterside car park, waterside site off this road, and it is very tight. You sometimes see it blocked and have to park elsewhere because you can't get through. And I think that's an inconvenience, but it's not an inconvenience that justifies double yellow lines on this road. I think it would be a loss of amenity to so many people in Weymouth to have double yellow lines up there. I think it's only really a problem in the high summer. This time of year, there's no problem. You can get up there. There's a turning place at the top, so you go all the way up to the top, turn around and come back down again. So you don't have to reverse down. So the fact that it's narrow, I think, helps reduce the speed, and that to me is a good thing. So I don't feel able to support this, and I'd almost raise an amendment and suggest that in place of asking for yellow lines, we ask for white lines, the resident to raise white line requests across each individual resident's drives. Or they, in other instances, they've been able to do a block deal with Dorset Council. Can you give me some advice on how would you prefer to proceed? To vote on this or to raise an amendment?
Well, we'll see whether other people would like to speak first.
Thank you.
Councillor James.
Yeah, having sat on planning for a very, very long time and been to that site several times because of the buildings that continued to grow up on that hill. Yes, David would be right that there would have been some sort of traffic survey done, and if yellow lines were required or needed at the time, then highways would have put that into the application for us, and somebody would have probably come forward at the time and asked for those yellow lines. I park up there quite a lot in the summer, but obviously on the other side of the road. I've never seen a problem with the entrance or the exit to the actual Riviera at all. Obviously I try and park sensibly. I wouldn't park into someone's driveway. I've never seen anybody park where they shouldn't. So I'm not keen to just put the yellow lines down everywhere and, like David says, prevent anyone else from using the highway. It's not owned by the residents, we all know that. The white line business, I do know from previous experiences of having to deal with traffic a lot, that was only ever advisory, that they can put it down, and it's not something that our enforcement team would enforce. It would be something that the police would have to come along and enforce whoever's parked across it, and it can prove quite difficult to actually get somebody to move if they are parked on a white line. And I've always contested that why should residents pay a hefty fee for something that at the end of the day they may not even be able to get any benefit from, to get somebody to move their car. So I'm not one for wanting to put yellow lines absolutely everywhere, and especially when people do use that, they do walk down to the beach, and parking is a premium. We know that, you know, anywhere around Weymouth, if you drive a car, you need to park, and unfortunately people are going to drive cars and people are going to need to park. So I'm not happy to agree with that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I just have a feeling that if there really was actually a problem with the road not being wide enough there, although people are not supposed to, the convention would have developed to people with two wheels on the pavement, as it happens on many roads in Weymouth. They're not supposed to do it, but where there is a problem of not enough width there, that has sort of developed, and that hasn't happened there, which suggests that there's very rarely a problem with width there.
Thank you. Well, I'm just looking at it on Google Maps. I make the road 6.5 meters wide, which your typical car is 2 meters. So if you had one car either side, you're going to leave a smidge over 2.5 meters left, which is enough for a car, but not an HGV. And I'm looking at also measuring from the end of the current yellow line to the Riviera's back access is only about 25 meters. So I'm wondering, as a compromise, we allow or we suggest double yellows up until where the Riviera's entrance is, because I understand they may have goods vehicles getting that far. But beyond that, there are 2 houses and the access to the open space. I don't see the need to restrict it beyond the Riviera's back gate.
Good idea. They've also got considerable driveways, the houses, so they've got plenty of room up on the driveways.
So I'm not sure I'm allowed another go, but just to try and pick up
please
some
do.
new ones. Fundamental issue isn't the driveways, it's the vehicle access. And you get 2.5 meters if people park flush with the curves. So if someone parks a bit more straight, you less than 2.5 meters. I think that's a sensible proposal if the yellow lines are far enough down that someone who goes up there can turn round in Riviera's driveway and get back out. Because what I don't want to do is get people trapped up the end in the no entry, in the no exit bit, having to reverse back down it. So I think a yellow line up one side up to Riviera's entrance is a sensible option.
So there are 3 entrances to the Riviera. Well, actually, there's 2 entrances and 1 exit. So the middle entrance is an entrance that goes up to where the actual building is, and then you loop back round and come out lower on. And the back entrance is really for the staff's accommodation back, and probably for a level of goods delivery. I've never actually seen anything doing that. So I'm just nervous about Weymouth becoming covered with double yellow lines, when this is a very quiet little street, except in the summer when the peak parking is there, and probably when the car park down by the beach becomes overflowing, then people will spread up from the beach. Most of the time, it's the people walking to Ossington, parking their cars, and dog walking up at the top there. That's most of the irregular parking. And as has been pointed out, all the residents have driveways with
The
big
drive,
entrances.
if I may say, the driveway is not an issue.
Yeah, I agree.
Somebody's driveway, they can park on there all they like. White lines are only advisory. When I've gone down there, there's an area that says keep clear, turning.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the people park there.
Ah, that's a different issue again.
And it's usually local people, because most local people know about this.
Yeah.
I would say most tourists would use the car park at the end of Bowleaze Cove, or the one at,
I don't disagree, it's mostly
it's
local.
mostly local
It's
people.
locals who like to find the quiet places.
Yeah, I'll see that, but we'll have to make a decision on this.
Chair, can I make a proposal?
I don't know whether we can amend a member of the public's request for double yellow lines.
So I think if we just go back to the recommendation, it's for us to consider the request, and agree whether or not you support
request.
the request.
John, did you want to come in?
I was going to second councillor Luke's. Waking this proposal.
Why don't you support it for 60 yards and not support it for the next 30 or whatever it is?
In view of your point, Councillor Dixon, I was going to suggest that we do the, I think it's about 30 metres from the end of the existing yellow to the Riviera's back gate, and additionally the turning circle. Have yellow lines put around that, if we can suggest that. It would leave a gap of, these guys measuring very quickly. It would leave about a 35-metre gap, which has 2-3 driveways in it. But that will give some, it's half and half, I guess.
Can I just say though, that everywhere you put yellow lines, you've got to have somebody to enforce it. And the trouble is, there are just not enough enforcement officers to go around. So it's money that's being spent. And if there's nobody to enforce it, and I know for a fact the last couple of years when there's not been enforcement going on in a lot of car parks and on yellow lines, that people know and they just park it. So it's just those money's being wasted, and for what for?
There are regular patrols up there because of the problem with motorhomes. So I know that. the police
That
do
is, yeah, that's the police,
Yeah.
not, they can't enforce the parking. That's the civil enforcement officers.
Depending on which resident it is, what you're suggesting may or not be satisfactory, and whether it's one or more residents, I don't know. And the other bit I'd say about white lines is that subject to the payment, I think they happen more readily and faster
Yeah,
than double yellow lines, which have to go through a full traffic TRO.
but the recommendation is to the request is whether or not we support the request for double yellow lines.
In the past, we've sometimes gone back to the resident and,
Yeah.
and shared what we've discussed and asked the resident to come back again.
I think that's what we should do this time.
So you want me to go back to the resident?
Yeah.
And say, Luke's proposal?
Luke's proposal, yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think you should say there's a discussion because we haven't agreed.
No.
So if you would, yeah, is everybody in agreement with that? That Tony will go back to the resident and say, our following discussion. Could he come back with the 30-minute and the turning circle?
No, because
No, you've got to
we've not
have the
voted
full
on
discussion
that.
should be reported.
Yeah,
That there was a debate.
yeah.
These points were raised.
Is it going to be available?
Yes.
The resident can.
Yes,
watch
Watch
it.
it on YouTube, yeah.
Yeah.
It
So
might be-
are we agreed that Tony's going to go back to the resident? Yes?
Yeah.
Right, thank you very much, Tony.
Recommendation.
Recommendation is that Tony goes back to the resident and we hear from that resident.
Yeah.
All those in, proposed by myself, seconded by Mr. Young, all those in favour?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Tony. We can now carry on to item 5, which is land at Newton's Road, Weymouth. And I know that Councillor Wakeling would like to speak on this matter.
Do you want us to kick off?
Yes, please, Luke.
Okay, members will recall we've seen this before. The developer has listened, I will say. So if we're going to put a response together, I think the first thing we should do is we should acknowledge and thank him for making concessions, because he's actually reduced it from 181 to 141 properties, which is a significant cut. Despite the fact he could not afford to make a single affordable home, he's now reduced the size of it significantly. But anyhow, I still have a few concerns about it. It is a vast improvement. We don't get me wrong, it's a vast improvement. Also, some residents would also like to speak on it. For some reason, it's lost parking from the last iteration to this iteration. We have 18 fewer parking spaces.
18.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is about 10% of the parking has vanished somehow. I don't even know how that's happened. In some places, it appears the roofs are still protruding above the cliff, which I think was the kind of red line they were instructed to stay beneath. And I was just discussing earlier. My concern is they will get permission for an outline permission for a 5-story building, and then the 5 stories will have a big pointy roof, an ex-plant room, and a lift shaft. I feel we should request quite strongly that the outline permission has a set height in meters. And it's up to him to fit the building in, because if you just give them a number of stories, they have liberty then to stretch it. So I would very much like to strongly ask me to do that. We previously said, I don't know if we need to repeat our previous comments. I was very keen that no construction traffic goes through Hope Square, and this committee previously added that to our comments because that's a conservation area. What other considerations we got? I believe the finish of the building is a reserved matter. This is only the outline thing. So although the pictures are quite garish and unsuitable for the World Heritage Site, I don't think that's the final look, but that would be a reserved matter. And maybe, Chair, you'd like to ask some of the residents just to come and explain their concerns as well.
Yeah. If you could just introduce yourself, it would help Freya with the notes.
Good evening, ladies
Good
and gentlemen.
evening.
William Dunmore from Redcliffe View. Thank you for allowing us to speak. Councillor Wakeling has mentioned my prime concern, which is the height of one of the buildings. I agree with his suggestion about giving the developer a fixed height in meters, although unfortunately the form of the cliff would dictate you would have to give probably half a dozen heights to get the profile of the cliff, because for the majority of the buildings, it's true now they are below the level of the cliff. But in fact, at the far western end, where the cliff is lower and the building is higher, I don't know why they've chosen to put the higher building in front of the lower cliff. I had my thoughts, but anyway, that's the way that they have submitted. So I would support Councillor Wakeling's proposal, but I think it would have to be a little bit more sophisticated than a single height. The other matters of traffic and so on, I think, have been mentioned, and I'm sure other people will carry that on. So thank you for inviting us to address it.
You don't have to be invited, you're always welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Marguerite Wells, also Redcliffe View. And yeah, it's very evident the town council has worked really hard working with the developer to shift them towards a more mutually acceptable development proposal. As a resident, I'm really grateful, so thank you, and thank you, Lou. However, from those photos submitted, this development's massive. It's still overbearing, and if you look at it, they've put some photos in from land and from the sea. It's certainly not subservient to and sitting below the cliff, which was previously recommended because of the World Heritage coastline. Such overdevelopment of the site will lead to more congestion on Boot Hill, the only access road, with already significant pollution problems. I noticed the reduction in the car parking, which I don't know why it got reduced, but obviously you've seen that as well. Any parking problems will just result in other local roads being further congested. And as for this lack of affordable housing, I don't really see it. If 35% affordable housing is provided, it will sell for 63 million apparently. If all is private, it's 77 million based on their figures. That's totally out of line with your house one plan of the local plan. Although a rough calculation seems to show a working profit of 10 million, which isn't bad for a 4 million outlay. And with affordable housing, I reckon it's 4 to 5 million profit, which could be forecast. Again, I don't think that's too bad. With over 2,000 households on the housing register, provision of affordable homes for local people is really vital. I don't know how you get around that one, but I think it's incredibly important. And as for the care home, I'm not sure why it's still being considered. Pre-application device says it's not necessary. Care home's already not full, and there aren't any staff to staff them if there are any more. Stability of the cliff perhaps needs investigating because it's a fragile environment. Definitely needs protecting. And back to the heights, there's no actual heights of the building given in relation to the position on the cliff, but that was what was requested in pre-application advice. And they wanted views from No Thought, Footpath to Seafast, Sam's Foot Castle, etc. It's very overbearing, and I think it will have a detrimental effect on Weymouth town. It's a town built on tourism. It's a beautiful place, and we need to keep it that way. Anyway, thank you for listening.
No, thank you for coming. Yeah, Councillor James.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the drawing, so the dotted line was what they were proposed to be the height of, I'm assuming, yeah.
The pink line is the previous
Yeah,
iteration, and you can
Yeah.
see it was quite tall.
yeah,
No, sorry, the pink line was the application that's already been granted,
Yeah.
which was for a different development. But notably, that was not along the cliff edge. That was, sorry, not along the sea wall. That was
Yeah.
right against the
yeah,
cliff.
that's right,
So you could kind of, it was a little bit less. The
yeah,
blue line, the teal line, is what
Yeah.
they previously applied for, and they've now reduced it. And you can see the difference
Yeah.
from the teal to the picture. There's a faint grey dotted line, which
Yeah.
is the edge of the cliff.
yeah,
And you can see in the building on the far left where it says offices, that's the one that is slightly poking above the cliff line there.
right, yeah,
The rest of them are mostly down.
yeah,
I believe, because I remember what Mr. Dean said when he came to see us last time, he has tenants for both the offices and the care home, which is why he wants to build them both, and he's lined them up. I think it was, I won't name the care provider, it was one of the local care providers, one for the care home. I believe the reason they were keen on it was they wanted a modern built facility that was energy efficient stuff, and they were going to sell off some smaller care homes. So it wouldn't add any additional capacity to the town. It would mean they could actually move to a purpose-built facility that was better for them. Wider doors. Yes, so they could.
We just have one built in Southfield, which
Well,
is yet to fill up, I think, so it's just, that's what I have always wondered, do we need another care home?
I think the answer is it wasn't going to add any capacity. It was just going to move to a more modern
Shuffle
facility,
things
and
around.
other older ones get sold.
Yeah,
I believe the tenant for the offices was Royal Navy, which is why they want to be right in the corner, so they can put a security fence anyway.
right, okay.
So that's why the office block. And unfortunately, that means they would also have their fencing on some of the parking. So although I can't remember exactly how many parking spaces, some of them would not be available for public use. They'd be reserved for the offices.
I think when it comes to parking, a lot of these developments over the years, having been on planning, if they were close enough to the town, the parking was just, there wasn't as much parking because it was felt that people would either not have a car or would walk, or, you know, not the same as the parking. There was a hoo-ha at the Astor Heights, whatever you want to call it, that you don't need as much parking if you're that close to the town. So that could be why. And where you say the buildings are higher, is that going into the site from this way or this way? Because where the buildings
Can I just
are.
point out? Do you like
Yeah, I'm just sort of, because where you said that they,
this building?
oh, right, okay.
That's the office that's gone.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't look higher than the buildings at that end, or is it just the way the site is on the site curve, so it wouldn't,
They're going down a long way there.
yeah,
I think the cliff is much lower there.
yeah,
But if you were stood on Binkley's Green, you could probably see over the offices because the Binkley's
Yeah.
high. The Redcliffe View, the street is immediately behind that office block.
Yeah.
So for the residents here who live there's not trees there, there are houses, it's their artists' liberty, you know, so. Yeah, that building could, certainly for some of the houses, some of the lower ones in Redcliffe View, won't be right from them.
Did you see footage of, I know it's different, did you see footage of, I think it was viewed in Cornwall, where they've got some flats and houses built literally the other side of a wall, and the river had flooded and the sea had come through, and people were actually surfing along this river, literally like that, outside people's front door.
I haven't counted the parking here. So on the application we saw in March, there were 257 proposed parking spaces. There are now 239.
It's not a big loss.
Well, it's 18. So for your 239 spaces, we've got 141 dwellings now. You've got the 60-bed care home that will need staff and visitor parking. You've got the office, and that has some reserved parking. I can't remember quite how many, about 20, I think. And then there's a restaurant which will have staff and customers coming to the restaurant as well. The reason I have concerns is because if you know my area at all, Barrack Road's an utter nightmare for parking. Hope Square fortunately has parking permits for that area. Then Chapel Hay area is also really hard work, and most of my inbox is about parking in that area, and I'm a town council, I can't do a lot about it. But yeah, I'm very, very concerned if any parking from this new development overspills, because the surrounding area already has too many issues.
Yeah, I think that
Away
would,
it goes.
yeah.
Councillor Northern.
Thank you, Chair. I've looked back at the comments I made last April.
Yeah.
March it was, but I then wrote in my personal comments. I've looked at those. There has been some concession by the developer, but I don't feel enough. I've struggled in the report, and maybe somebody can help me to find where there's a commitment to affordable housing. I don't think there is any. So despite last time we objected on the basis that House 1 wasn't being met, and for a development of this size, we should be getting some affordable housing. And it went even further in the viability assessment. It said it's not viable. And by the way, we don't have any money to pay for affordable housing elsewhere under a SIL or a Section 106. So I still find this unacceptable on the House 1, and I'd like to suggest that as a reason for objection. It also refers to House 5, which is the care home provision. And there has to be a demonstrable case that additional care homes are needed, not replacement care homes, additional care homes. And with the care home development that are going on in Weymouth, particularly the one at South Hill, I see that that need has gone away. So it'll be interesting what the Dorset Council social care officer says on that point. But I think it's worth highlighting our concern about House 5. The other big policy in this area is Way 9, which is the whole Binclews site development. And there are 3 parts to that. And the first part says, wait a minute, I've got it written down somewhere. It says something, either alternative employment. So the site is suggested for either alternative employment use, which it isn't this, or comprehensive mixed development of the site, provide community benefits. So we've got to ask ourselves, what are the community benefits? Including sufficient employment use to ensure no significant loss of potential jobs. And I did some research, and you'll like this, I hope. That's 1947, with the ARE people there working on the torpedo site, and there were 147 staff on the site. That's 1977, okay, and that's when it was DERA, and that's got 130 people on the site. And I did some investigation about Kinetic when they were operating the site, and in 2000, the number had reduced to 117. So you've got to ask yourself, what's no significant loss of employment? And you might say 117. What's a significant loss? Well, anything more than 85, I'd say is significant. So if it doesn't meet 85, and I struggle to see where there's no firm justification for the new jobs that are created. So where are these 85 jobs coming from? There'll be some care home. Well, no, they won't, because they're just moving from one care home to another. It's not new jobs for Weymouth. There's some catering going on, some swimming pools. So there's some maintenance type stuff going on. But 85? No, the offices. It's not a firm commitment for those offices, it's a prospect. I doubt that there's a firm agreement in from the Navy with all their cuts, and it was quite obscure as to what was actually being proposed there. So I think there are lots of promises in this outline permission without any facts supporting it. So again, I'd like to suggest we object on the basis not only of House 1, House 5, but also Way 9. Happy to provide some of this background. I think I'm surprised that Mr. Dean, when he did see us, didn't realise what we felt as an advisory group on affordable housing, because that's a really desperate need. And this site is a mega £1 million site, and it should do something for Weymouth people by way of benefit. Thank you.
And John? Okay, John?
Yeah, well, preliminarily, I welcome this reduction in height. That's quite improvement. So we're moving in the right direction. There is some benefit to all these developments in the sense of we're opening up the walkways around the front and along the pier. So those are the plus sides. I'm a bit alarmed on the other side though by the Environment Agency's submission, which I just read. They're putting in a fairly sustained objection to this on the basis that inadequate flood defences and planning. My opinion, the Environment Agency is it's quite weak in its recommendations. It has been underfunded of late. So when I see it actually putting in a recommendation against something, and that carries a lot more authority for me, because I know that the agency hardly objects to anything nowadays. They can't defend our rivers, they can't defend them from sewage. So for them to put such a strong wording in means it's really at risk of flooding. So I maintain the Environment Agency's objection allowed to flood risk.
Would you like to point? Sorry, I missed that little bit.
It's flood risk.
It's flood risk. Tim?
Yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, development, some sort like this, there is going to be a vast improvement. I worked on that. So, yeah, that is unstable ground. It moves all the time, but I'm sure the developers taking that as a new we can. But I would like to see these caveats added about the height being lower and a commitment to affordable homes there.
So we've got to get all this formulated into a comment up to Dorset. I mean, the first thing we'd like to thank the developer for listening, which is very good. But then we need to formulate a proper objections. I mean, with strong objection about affordable housing, and then there's that they don't meet House 1. What was it?
House 5,
House 5.
Way 9,
I mean,
and flood risk.
Flood risk.
In fact, if you look at the previous objection we raised,
Yeah.
it covers those topics. It can do with a bit more.
And the flood.
Way 9, and it needs the flood risk adding.
what the original comment had the
Way 9,
yeah, no, the flood risk.
the flood risk.
That wasn't on the original.
Yeah.
So yeah, if we can also please inquire why the amount of parking gets reduced, because it's grossly inadequate now, it's just. And we can press for a fixed height in meters. Fixed relative to the cliff, without roof, plant or anything else protruding.
So have we got that, Fran?
I'm just typing some up there.
Sorry, at the risk of butting in again, could we possibly ask them to address the fact that the cliff's fallen down and now the cliff path for tourists has to go miles around through the houses? Could they join it all up as a part of the?
That is part of the plan.
No. No, the two are separate.
Where down where the underground falls, where you end up on the seashore at the minute, to make it a.
It's not within this development.
No.
Looking in, if you read back to all the comments, you'll see one from Dave Ackley, who's the countryside manager for Dorset Council. He's requested a community contribution from them towards that part of the story. So I can't guarantee it. Yeah, somebody else who the countryside ranger, who's quite authoritative on that, has said that is an area they can make a contribution to.
Because certainly people who walk up there all the time, it's very, very busy along that path. They need something back, I think, as well.
So we did in casual conversations suggest that he put steps in from the bottom tower to the top one, but it was forthcoming on that.
Would be nice for the locals, very nice.
Yeah, and you're quite correct. There were steps there. You can see them in some of the old pictures before they fenced it all off.
There was a lovely boardwalk along there.
I'm happy to provide
Yeah.
something to actually formulate the full works.
That's the parking, is it? Lots of parking.
Reduction from the previous iteration of parking by 18.
You need to put anything in there about the lack of the jobs that you said about that, you know, less employment.
So under way 9, it has to provide community benefits. They're not clear.
Yeah.
And it has to provide no significant loss of employment. And I'm written to the authority and informed them of these numbers I read out to you. And so I'm suggesting 117. No significant loss might be 5 jobs, which is a challenge, but one they want to go for.
There is no employment there at the moment.
No,
Councillor Norton, what was number 117?
117 was evidenced in year. Sorry,
Well,
year 2000.
2006, they closed us all.
Yeah, in 2006 they shut the place, but it run down a lot in those intervening years. The history of Connecticut is the paper I looked at.
So where we put the height is adjusted further to reflect this, and that put a fixed height. That's you would say.
I'd like it in meters, not in stories, because I think stories is just too woolly.
Could have had a ceiling, yeah, big high ceiling.
But was number
A fixed height in meters.
Meter, yeah.
For each building or something. Yeah, not for the whole site, but by building by buildings in the nearest bit of it. Would we be able to add that we support the Countryside Rangers request for 106 funds towards the underground path?
Yeah, we will put it in there, yeah, because if there's going to be 106 money, at least we put in at this stage what we'd like to see it go for.
In my personal one, last time I suggested because there are 0 gardens, the town council should get 106 towards green space.
Yeah.
Because we will be providing green space facilities to the properties that they are.
Or the nearest them would be the no, wouldn't it? Or
Yeah.
And what did you say on the range? We support the Countryside Rangers request for 106 money for
Underbarn. Restoration of the underbarn footpath.
Underbarn.
Underbarn, it's the name of the place.
I think it's footpath 97 or something like
Can't remember, very geeky.
Underbarn.
there
Underbarn.
were plans, like, restore the lost gardens of Chapel Hay.
Yeah, could we add?
Yeah, we can add what we because
Okay, so the care home provision does not provide additional jobs because it is relocating existing.
we are informed.
We're informed.
Yes.
Yeah.
That
And is
it's,
that underway 9?
That's a separate justification for house 5. That's house 5. House 5 refers to care home provision.
so we've got in H5. That's it. I'll have a quick read through, and if we're all happy, we'll go for a proposer and a seconder. We are all happy to oppose
Reject the.
on this present scheme. We recommend, I want social housing, so
Yeah. Could we add something about the 106 for the town council for our green spaces? Due to the lack of gardens?
So this is an outline, so they wouldn't normally outline planning permission.
They won't grant it a reserve.
Okay, council planning and we would like to thank the fellow for producing from where we would request profile on the size undertaken and how it is adjusted. Could a fixed height in meters for each building be provided?
Can we change the word fixed to maximum?
Maximum height.
Could I add some words for house one?
Yes, please. Yeah. I want to get it right. So
No, that's fine. So house one requires 35% affordable homes, but no affordable homes are being provided. Use the AH and review. Are being provided, nor is any money being paid to offset this. Anybody reread the viability assessment?
I've reread it.
I haven't reread it. The previous one was flawed because it compared house prices were Weymouth house prices, but building costs were based on Bournemouth.
Yeah.
So that was distorting the reality of the margin.
But if we go with this now, yeah. So if I could have a proposer. We'll have councillor Northam, seconded by councillor Wakeling. All those in favour of the
Objection.
of the objection? Thank you very much. That's unanimous.
Okay.
Okay, you're very welcome to stay and listen to the rest of the meeting, but thank you ever so much for coming along. It's much appreciated. Showing your support for Luke. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Excuse
We now move on to 87, the Esplande. Site fronting Gloucester Mews, Weymouth, Dorset. Demolition of existing rear extension and the erection of 23 100% affordable flats. And I believe you wanted to speak on this, councillor Flores?
Yeah, just saying we have approved this once before,
Oh,
I'm sure,
yeah.
and I'd just like to approve it again.
Yeah.
It's obviously the selling point, it's 100% affordable flats, and the building is in dreadful condition.
Yeah.
It's a blight on the neighbourhood, so, yeah, in endorsing it, I also want to give them a push to get on with it. We'd
Yeah.
like to see this delivered this in the coming year.
So the only comment we'd like to send with this one is, thank you very much for this. Could you please get on with it? You're happy with that?
Yeah, we put that in better language.
Yeah.
We look forward to being complete in 2023.
So my question was, do we know how it's being delivered, the 100% affordable homes, or is it still a plan? Because normally there's a housing association or registered.
I think it is a housing association.
Okay, good. That gives me a bit more confidence.
Yeah. Right. So all those in favour, proposed by councillor Orrell, seconded by councillor James, all those in favour of the comment to Dorset Council? That's unanimous, Freya. We now move on to 15 Monsell Avenue, replacement garage. Would anybody like to speak on that one? No? 7 Custom House Quay, would anybody like to talk? Oh, so if I could have we propose that we move Monsell Avenue into item 6. Proposed by councillor Northern, seconded by.
What can I say? Item 6 has still got 87 the Esplande in it, but no comment. It's in there twice. So can we put Monsell Avenue into item 6?
Yeah.
Take
That's
87
what
the
I'm just-
Esplande out of item 6.
No. 87 the Esplanade, we just voted to send a comment up.
It's also in the no comment. It's on the agenda twice, I don't know why.
Oh, there are 2 different applications.
Yeah,
are on the
there's-
same topic,
Yeah,
but we just copy it over.
so if you look to the bottom of the screen, so we've got it, it has been repeated twice. So if we can vote for it to, like Luke said, to vote in for it to be comment,
The comment.
so swap that one across with the.
Yeah.
15.
Yeah.
Avenue.
Yeah.
Yeah. You okay with that?
Yeah, so you'd like to propose that?
Yes.
Yeah, seconded, councillor Northam, all those in favour? That's unanimous, Brian. Which one are we on now? 15 more.
There's some customers.
7 Custom House Quay. Oh, councillor Northam?
I'm assuming even if we raise no objection, it would be pointed out it's within a conservation area. And the
Well, we can make any comment we like up
So
to go
let's
with
just
it.
say, noting this is in a conservation area, I suggest we have no objection. Sorry, that's a bit wrong in phrasing.
I think we should object to it.
Sorry. Well,
Too much glass.
Can we have the plans?
It's too much glass.
But if we could have the plans, then could we also find on Google Maps, just to see what's happening? If you go to the bottom on the proposed floor and elevations.
oh yeah,
And yeah, if you could Google Maps and just do a street view line, please. Oh.
that's what is there.
You could, yeah.
I'm gonna do some Google.
North.
West
West of
Only the whole- There you go.
Fire.
west a bit more,
No.
between the George and the Custom House
No,
Caravan.
I'm out of.
Lazy. Put this up round. Oh, no, they got up there.
Oh, no.
There's something.
God, you need to swim across.
The other side of the harbour.
Yeah, see if you can walk across the harbour. Want some water.
We've mapped it.
And I can see where you've got the ship in. That way.
No, so right now,
That's the right
A
bit.
little bit to the right from there,
it's right. on the
another
past
inch to
bit.
the right,
Yeah,
about there.
on that corner.
Yay. Sorry about
Right, go up to the end of that block.
Right, it's that grey bit to the
There you go.
left, there, right, sorry.
It's quite nice there. We love it.
It's next to the custom.
That bit.
Okay, so we have, previously there was a change of use of this building,
Yeah.
which we objected to.
Yeah.
Sorry, you should look at the building to the left, which was also part of it. That bit already been spoiled, a bit round the corner.
The bit to the left, he's appealed and won.
Okay.
Yes. So yes, there was an appeal for the bit on the left that was done without planning, and that's been approved. On this building now, they did ask for a change of use, which we objected to, and the applicant withdrew, so that has never been determined. As far as I'm concerned, it's still a commercial building. And now they want to build a flat. Not one of my residents, a certain Mr. James Marcus, back to, I think, is one of your residents, wrote to me to say, this is a Georgian style building, that the windows get smaller as you go up the building, which gives it a sense of height. So it has the smallest windows on the third floor. The application in front of us is to actually knock them all out and make them all even sized windows for a modern look. Which, if you zoom in on that, yeah, there we go. And also to put a rather large glass balcony.
Yeah.
On there,
We
which,
refused that before, didn't we?
well, I think we have, but it's come back.
Yeah.
The interesting thing, if we could just go back to the Google view, if you don't mind, what's been pointed out to me is there's that block in the wall that would formerly have been a hoist.
Yeah.
And the window beneath it would have been obviously the door to the warehousing when it was built as a Victorian warehouse. The resident suggested it would be preferable if they had a small balcony under there resembling the original warehouse entrance with a door, because that's what it would have been before it was converted to property. that would be sort of in keeping with it and its style, but to put a many meters long glass balcony, the length of the building, is not in keeping. And again, the bottom, the doors, we've gone, now we've got certain patio doors on the left-hand building, he's gone for a massive,
Bifolded.
well, that's more than bifolded, that's like quadruple folded.
They use the block though for the coffee cup look, you know, that's considerate, isn't it?
I don't think it's in keeping at all with the streets, the conservation area. I think the balcony's overbearing. I think the bifold doors are too much.
We've had this before, haven't we,
Yeah.
John?
Yeah, rejected.
And we both got a
We've got
snotty email, didn't we?
That's not a reason not to. I'll second.
I support the, I don't think this is appropriate for that on the seafront, being in a conservation area.
Because one, there are some balconies on side streets,
Yeah.
but that frontage.
No.
Is no, but we're not looking for owners to modernise it. We're looking for them to maintain the conservation area. That's what they're meant to do, because you got to think what would happen to the area if every owner did the same as that, and it would bring there. If anyone does it, they're laughing because they look at it on nice properties, but we can't have owners modernising the conservation area.
I'm not saying I disagree with you, but at the end of the day, if they all did something, in a couple of 100 years' time, nobody's going to be any the wiser. And in 200 years' time, somebody will be going, it's a conservation area, let's modernise it. So I think, you know, there's an argument on both sides. That if everybody did it, you wouldn't end up knowing any different.
Yeah, can I ask what the proposed usage is for this building? If they just did?
He has tried in the past to change it to a residence. We objected on the grounds that it was doing away with employment.
Right.
He then came back, and I just get the impression, and I may be totally wrong, I just get the impression he wants that part to be some sort of Airbnb, so that he wanted the access in there, go up to the top, and you've got a lovely harbour front.
Yeah.
But it's totally out of character.
I agree. I mean, the only real justification I could see if you wanted to do that was if that was going to be a restaurant in there, and we've got the pavement outside, and in the summer that could all be open and it could be spilling out, but there's no such proposal in there. No, in that case, I'll vote against that.
So could I propose that we don't move this to the no objection, but we object on the basis that it's within the conservation area, and our opinion is that the building's appearance would not be in keeping with the surroundings.
Did you manage to get that, Frank? Yeah? Is everybody in agreement with, sorry, could I have a seconder? For David's, yeah?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Councillor Young, seconded. All those in favour?
Yeah.
So that's unanimous. We don't do that one now, we just go now into item 6.
Yeah.
Right, thank you, committee. We now move into item 6. Does everybody have a chance to look through all of that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
There was one item in here that I think still probably still stays where it is, but just for the committee to be aware. Badgers Cliff, the Ridgeway Upway. We had a previous application which created the self-contained dwelling, which at one stage was part of the main house. We're now getting an annex to the self-contained dwelling. Very quickly, it will become a very desirable second house. I don't think there's any reason why that shouldn't happen, but I just point out the creep that's taking place. So I still think it's in the no objection. It's up to Dorset Council to decide whether it's overdevelopment of the site.
So if I could ask for a proposer that all the items in item 6 are no objection. Councillor O'Rell, seconded by Councillor Northam. All those in favour? That's unanimous, Fred. We can now move on to item 7, planning application responded. There are none.
Good.
Move on to item 8, licence enforcement appeals and phone mans Renewal of sexual entertainment venue license, Wiggle, 33 New Street, Weymouth. Has anybody got any comments on this? No, so it's recommended that members are asked to consider the above information and decide, so we have no objection. Yeah, so no objection. Could I have a proposer, Councillor James, seconded by Councillor Wakeling? All those in favour? That's unanimous. We have no item 9. We have no sitting out licenses. Item 10. Proposed stopping up of highway at 4 Walker Crescent.
Yeah. We just agreed to that, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can I just ask what it is? 'Cause
It's
I looked at the plans, it's a bit of birch.
It's around the max.
What's the name?
It's to stop public right of way for, if it's just temporarily, so stopping up, basically, if designation changes.
Now
It's where
they're doing they're developing it. So
they're developing the site and they need access across public land.
And it's a safety measure.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's a once in order to it means that once we've made a highway now, it needs to be a highway road or.
it's just while they do the work and then it's all hopefully instated. Unless the house actually grabs a bit of land and fixes it all.
If you review the map, it's literally like 1 meter
Yeah.
5.
Yeah, it's,
Yeah.
I look at grass verge,
Yeah.
really.
okay. It goes in front of the Secretary of State and he signs it. Yes or no?
Sure, it's got better things to do.
There we go. So.
To confirm that it's not permanent loss of a right of way, this is temporary stop.
So the recommended members are asked to consider the above approach and agree on no objection.
No objection.
No objection. So could I have Councillor Young proposed, seconded by Councillor Orrell? All those in favour? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in favour. All those against? Any objection? Abstention.
Yeah, I
And one
I'm
abstention.
myself confused.
Under the same item, we come to names for streets of the new Curtis Field site. Members are asked to consider whether or not they agree that the new names are suitable.
There's nothing offensive. Is there?
It's a pity that some of the history of the site isn't reflected.
Badgers, badgers.
Badger is about the only.
What about bramble, limestone, thistle? Must be this one, brambles and blossoms.
So,
Is this the second part of it?
and there might already be, so, you know, the Little Francis farmhouse that used to be there. There are a number of historical things. It just seems a bit, what's the word? Magnolia. Will do.
I've got no real imagination, that's the trouble,
Yes.
to have looked into it and, you know, the little school bunking off place that turned into. General.
So there's nothing, so being Magnolia, there's nothing objectionable about it.
No.
I agree with David Northam. It's very bland, but I guess if you're going to purchase a house, you don't want something with a controversial name. So
Did you know that Redlands used to be called Knacker's Hole?
Yeah.
that's somebody who wouldn't want to live.
I think that you want to live in Knacker's Hole.
You'll probably find in today's world that whoever's had to sit down and do this, they've been given a brief not to find anything that should be slightly outrageous or insulting or offensive and you know.
Okay. Whilst we're on this item, has the town council produced a list of potential street names for our town? Because I think that's something we wanted to do at some stage.
I don't know.
We did that.
I believe we bought a paper to a report a few months back, and I think that was potentially Councillor Wakeling an idea for that. And because there's already a policy in place at Dorset Council, we have to follow that. So it's what the developer brings to us. Maybe then.
Usually the ward councillor,
Yeah,
the DC ward councillor,
no,
Yeah.
I did it in my ward.
Okay, but gets an email saying this site is coming towards fruition. Do you have any suggestions
Yeah.
for street names. I've made some in my ward. I've still got some more to go because there's still more development coming on. And I think that's a good opportunity for the ward councillor to get some ideas for them.
Why are you thinking about Binkers?
Well, I'm thinking of, we could, I know some other town and parish councils have a list of names,
Yeah,
either notable local history things
Yeah.
or maybe
yeah.
people who may have died that they want to commemorate, and then
Yeah,
the developers aren't obliged to use it, but if they're looking for inspiration that's not so magnolia, they can.
Well, I've got
Pick for
the chap that's doing the place on the, as you go to Portland, what's it called? The old ferry bridge. I've been speaking to him about the last year because on our cenotaph, we've got a VC. We've got a lieutenant commander, and it Rook, who's a VC, and it was shown to me and he said, can we get something named? And I've been speaking to the developer. I've got to get in touch with him again. He's agreed to name one of the buildings after this particular person, Rook, and it's because it's near the sea, that was quite apt to do it. So I've contacted developers and said, we've got such and such history or person, so just do it, just contact them and say.
I think just formally as a council, is not something we could visit once a year and just add.
If it comes from Dorset Council, if they, because I think they've asked you, well, you did it last time, didn't you, David?
yeah, I did
Yeah,
it.
they request it to us, and David did the last one.
So, but Dorset Council will assess whether there's a conflict with existing names. So there is already a Barley Way in Weymouth.
Is there?
Yeah.
Wow.
A barley way.
Barley Way.
I mean, that's why they only need 8.
Yeah.
And I think they put 11 up in case there is. I think, but
I've done the Bentley, is it Bentley? That just seems a bit out of order with the other name.
That sounds more interesting, yes.
There are some braver.
Is a brave, but I don't know.
don't know.
I don't know.
And there's
Well, so if we could move, our members are asked to consider whether or not they agree that the new names are suitable.
Yeah.
So,
Super, and ask them to check for duplicates.
yeah,
I'm sure they must do.
yeah. So the suggestion is that we say the names are suitable, but could they please check for duplication?
Or could
Yeah,
we, could we
Could
also
just
add
add
that
that, and can they possibly
in future?
consider any local history
Yeah.
in some
In
way?
future, think a bit more
Yeah.
outside the box and local history characters, yeah, that would be.
Otherwise,
Have you got that?
You can just jump in.
Yeah.
So on screen, we've got the Dorset Council website, and it does say that we can propose other suitable names.
we need more.
well, we're not actually opposing, are we? We're just making a suggestion.
I'm not suggesting today, but I've seen other town councils where I've been looking at governance around place. One of the planning functions they do is they, once or twice a year, they just have a big list of names. They invite residents to give them names, and they'll shortlist them and say, right, if developers come and ask us, here's our suggestions, here's 50 names.
Yeah.
Developers could pick from, and they have some local significance or something rather than picking sandstone.
Yeah, well, I actually think that because we're in the Jurassic Coast, naming streets after the different layers of rock is quite a good idea.
As long as they're not too long.
Bencliffe, there's a Bencliffe grit layer, which is oolitic limestone. There you go. I just looked it up.
Well, I lived in a place called Bentley.
So if we can move on, we can vote, but
Yeah.
I think we've said, haven't we, Freya, that we have no objection, but could they please consider local history?
I like Bencliffe because it is local geology.
Right.
And from out of that, I would also look back at the report we brought to this committee in the last year. It has been since I've been doing this committee, and what we suggested before and the outcome of that, and then email you.
So if we could have a proposer on the motion, councillor Wakeling, seconded by councillor Orrell. All those in favour? We can now move on to item 11. There is none. Item 12 we've already covered. We now come to item 13, which is information items. Would anybody like to talk on anything within the information items?
I won't give a neighbourhood plan update because I gave one at the full council.
We'll now move on to item 13 then, which is the neighbourhood update. And we've just heard from David, we've just had one at the full council. So he's going to save his voice tonight. Item 14, I'm not aware of any emergency items. I can now therefore close the meeting. Thank you all very much.